When the feminine soul of the man marries the masculine soul of the woman, their bodies becomes the instrument of their union, which must be tuned and played upon. But to reach this stage, the warrior poet must subject himself to the most difficult disciplines intended to purify his body. He shall discover many new ways to do so. He have already discovered the techniques of looking and seeing. He learned the differences between the two, how to really see a flower, a tree, an animal, or even a thought. And to do this, he had to block all ideas and feelings out of his mind, so that he might see what could be revealed by an impersonal beam of light. He concentrated on the point between the eyes and learned how to stop thinking and breathing. And deeply concentrating on this spot between his eyes, he stopped all thoughts and blocked all images. He sat in the lotus position and breathed rhythmically. He began to examine himself from within, looking at his heart, his lungs, his veins. Gradually, he moved up the tree of his spinal column until he reached his skull. He used the same technique to look inside, to calm his body and to look at himself as though he was a stranger. And when he reached the top of the tree, he didn't open his ordinary eyes, but the third eye between his eyebrows. It was an act of unfolding. He opened his eyes and he saw the world for the first time. And the petals opened, and the bird resting there spread its wings. He felt a slight movement at the base of his spine, as though a mouth had opened up. And the feeling moved up his spine, and he felt coldness gradually spread through his body. And rhythmic waves moved upwards, seeming to expand and destroy his body at the same time. And as the waves on burning ice reached his throat and moved even higher, he felt as though he were about to be pushed into a vacuum that would consume his ego and his identity. He thought as he was going to be torn apart by opposing forces, and he was overcome with terror. He was on the threshold of death, standing, for he felt something trying to push him over. And then he crossed over in a fiery chariot, and for a while he knew nothing, but before long he felt himself falling. He went down faster and faster, until at last he floated gently through dark clouds, turning around and around like a sacrificial victim being roasted over flames. He rose again and crossed over into a region of thin, high blue air, where he felt himself light and free in the luminous blue heights. Through the years, he encountered the whole pantheon of gods, and he sang and prayed to them, all as he prepared himself, almost unconsciously, for the ritual that was to come. He could not tell whether it was an illusion or not. The image was momentarily clear, but soon it vanished. Then he heard a voice saying, "I have come to take you away, my beloved." And together they lived in a jungle hut, and he acted as her servant. He did the chores, preparing the food and bringing water from a nearby fountain. And sometimes she would leave without telling him where she was going. He would wait for her patiently, and when eventually she came back, he would be very happy. She told him about her perfumes and ornaments and incense, and it made her a tiara of flowers and a necklace of turquoise and some sapphires. She taught him how to anoint her with the perfumes and powders, and she would then look at herself in the looking glass. And when she came back from her mysterious trips, he would let her wash her feet in a basin of water. Always he had ready for her at the door of the hut. When night fell, the forest was alive with whispers, and they could hear the howling of the hyenas and the wind breathing against the trees. And in a clear and sweet voice, she would sing songs describing divine love. Then they would lie down outside under the sky, heavy with stars, and she would sleep on one side, placing her head in the palm of her hand, and he stretched himself out at her feet. During this period, it seems as though each of them was living in a dream world, or was acting out the events of some interior life. He felt the woman was becoming a goddess, like one of those carved on the stone walls of the temple. And she would tell him about her childhood and about the games she had played with other children. And one night, she asked him not to sleep at her feet, but to lay down at her left side on the bed. He obeyed, and he crossed his hands on his chest, and he gazed up at the deep sky. He was again waiting for her, listening to her to come through the jungle. And when she arrived, he rose and anointed her feet. That night, she asked him to sleep on the right side of her, and he felt her perfumed breast next to his cheek. Nevertheless, he kept his gaze fixed upon the night sky. Day and month went by. She kept taking her mysterious trips, but each time she came back. And once he asked her where she had been, and she told him she had been visiting her husband. More and more, he realized that she was transforming herself into some kind of energy inside of him, and she gave life to memories that he had long carried dormant within him. And one night he dreamed about a snow-covered mountain, and there was a woman with blue eyes and blonde hair who looked through him and as though he was transparent, and he woke up with his face covered with tears when he realized that he was dreaming about what wouldn't happen for another 1,000 years. She wiped off his tears with her hair and anointed him with the same care which he had anointed and bathed her earlier that evening. Why are you crying?" she asked. For the first time, he looked at her as if she was a stranger. "Because I know my wheel is going to turn for another day," he answered. "The wheel on top of the tree of life, my dear? It also continues to turn," she replied to him. "The secret marriage is a product of pure mental concentration, my love. It comes from the light of a single star. And if you gaze at that star, and it sends words back to you spoken by your love, you are married forever. Oh, it seemed so clear to him that the earth truly is feminine. And when the feminine soul of the man marries the masculine soul of the woman, their body becomes the instrument of their union, which must be tuned and played upon. Which must be tuned and played upon.